All right, everybody. So, yesterday I finished reading the book Be Like Amazon. Even a lemon stand can do it. And I want to share with you guys some of my favorite quotes and takeaway from this book. It was an easy read. It took me about 3 hours to finish the entire book. And if I were to put it in one word, or maybe two words, that this book is focused on is being customer centric. So, be like Amazon, just like the title. You could imagine it talks a lot about the methods and business strategies that Amazon uses to be very successful. But also, what I notice is a lot of the MBA program, for example, from UPenn or Stanford or Yale presentation on marketing, also a lot of the times emphasize on the importance of customer centricity. And as some of you guys are aware, even famous tech innovators like Steve Jobs and others are very customer centric as well. So this book dives deep and gives a lot of great examples as to what it means to be customer focused, and how most of the times we as businesses and startups and marketing teams sometimes forget about what it means to put the customer first and then work our way backwards to technology, like what Steve Jobs would say. So, yeah, let's dive into some of the great quotes and just overall the key takeaways and thoughts on this book. So, one of the quotes that they have talked about is to change a person's action, you must first change their belief. So, in the very beginning of the book, it talks about how a lot of companies and marketing teams, they come together, they look at these reporting data, performances, and basically it doesn't really tell them much, as what we're seeing with those data a lot of times. It just talks about um, how the business is running, but it doesn't really tell you as to what to do next or what you should do with those data. And also, on top of that, they're saying a lot of times if you want to drive influence in a market segment, you really want to influence their belief. And I think that there are a lot of influencers um, that talks about this idea as well, where if you want to create a brand, if you want to generate brand awareness, one of the key thing is to kind of showcase the customer, what do you believe in as a company. Like, it's way deeper than the idea of what your mission is. As a lot of the times, a lot of the missions from a lot of the companies are very generic, right? Like, be, the premier products or whatever, things that basically jargons that doesn't really make much sense, or even just um, like, it doesn't stand out. It's just the same. So it's basically this idea of, if you want to change a person's action, and that action could be, for that person's to buy, to be, with your brand, on brand, and love your brand, or any kind of supporting action towards your brand, it could be a type of action. And what you need to do is either change their belief or capture those who believe in what you believe in. And many influencer, including the person who wrote this book, talks a lot about how you should, basically not influence your belief to others, but to really capture the folks who also have the same belief as you, to then drive for a bigger goal. And I think Apple, Steve Jobs does this very well, where the way that they marketed their product, it's really from a perspective of how do they express, one, what Apple stands for as a product. So like in the very beginning, their company talks a lot about, like, one of their most infamous ad was about Think Different, and that Think Different ad talks a lot about like uniqueness, right? Like, it's Einstein and like all these very famous, intelligent people that are a little different and they think different, they're unique, they're not like the rest that uses Apple. And it kind of, in a sense, like resonate with some people where they feel like they're a rebel. They don't really fit in society in this norm way, and they're unique. They want to create. At the same time, it's also very flattering that Apple is being associating themselves with all these very famous and intelligent people. So it really attracts you to thinking that, yes, I'm also part of that. I want to create, I love art, and therefore I use Apple. So like that sense of belief, right? Like it's not that Apple created that belief in these people. Is a matter of amplifying their belief, and then for them to then associate themselves to their brands, right? So they have a mission, they have something that they stand for, and at the end of the day, they kind of went through that layer of not only what they do, what product they sell, but why they do it. So the idea of why they do it equals their belief, and therefore the audiences that they capture also believe in what they believe in, and that it's like a layer of customer loyalty that it's very hard to get, but once you get it, it tends to stick a lot more than other types of audiences. And there's this idea of controllable inputs that they talked a lot about in the books. So there was one chapter or a couple of pages in the book that talks about how Jeff Bezos set their goals, right? Like, what do they care about as a business? Like, how do they plan their strategy, and what do they focus on? And one of the things that Jeff Bezos have mentioned that they focus a lot on is controllable inputs, meaning things that are more stabilized, meaning instead of, the thought of this era of being innovative and being disruptive and finding things that, nobody even know they want or doesn't even exist today, he focuses on things that are stabilized in the sense that are controllable inputs, in the sense that, well, in the example that he have given was actually one of the areas that he focused years back when he, started thinking about long-term strategy for Amazon is what are some things that he for sure know that the customers that he's focused on would still want 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. What are some things that he's certain that will still be true, right? And one of the things is that he knows that even a decade from now, if he asks his customer, would you like your prices to be lower? Would you like your delivery to come a little sooner? He knows that their answer will never be, hey, Jeff, I love Amazon and all, but I just really wish that the price was a little bit higher, or that the delivery would just come a little bit slower. Like, he knows that as a fact, and that is how he considers what a controllable inputs are. And so those are the things that he would like to make big bets in and focused on in within his strategy. So which is in a sense very unique, right? Because if you think about it, a lot of the other entrepreneurs are putting their time and energy in things that are unimaginable in some sense. Like, for example, Elon Musk, right? The things that he creates with Tesla is one of the examples, but SpaceX is a perfect example, right? Nobody have been in Mars, and nobody has created a rocket the way he has and reusable, and the way he imagined our way to be multi-planetary, and all of that is something that, nobody really has imagined or have put together, and therefore this idea of controllable inputs is not as relevant. It's actually not at all relevant to the sense of Elon Musk, of how he would put into his energy and focuses in his business strategies. So I think, it's very unique that those two people are obviously mega successful, but their focus areas and strategies so different to one another. And I think this idea of controllable inputs that Jeff Bezos really focused on definitely has also a lot of pros, and makes a lot of logical sense of why controllable inputs is something that could succeed very well and scale very well in the long run. Another quote that is very good, I thought, was, "When things get complicated, we simplify by saying what's best for the customer, and then we take it as an article of faith that if we do that, it'll work out in the long term." So this idea of customer centricity is really the theme throughout this entire book. And if any of you have watched Jeff Bezos' interview, you'll hear that he always mentioned the term customer obsessed, customer obsession. He is obsessed with his customer, meaning that a lot of times what he would say contributed to the success of Amazon is the fact that they not only listen to customers, but they really put customer forefront in everything that they do. They invent on the behalf of the customer, so they don't just wait and listen to what the customer have asked or want, but they invent on their behalf as well. So this idea, though sounds very simple and logical, and you would think that all businesses would implement a strategy like this one, where any product that you throw out there, be very customer centric, listen to your customer is always right? Like those slogan of things exist. However, you won't believe how many companies that I have been involved with, or just companies in general that's out there even today, that are very product focused versus customer focused, or competitor focused versus customer focused. So I think that it is one of those where it's easier said than done. It becomes a little bit more difficult as your company built bigger and bigger, and have more things that you have to take care of as an operations. You kind of forget what is that customer experience that your company and your products really providing, your marketing strategies really giving these customers. There's so many times where within the company that I've been with and see that it's every content piece that we throw out there as a marketer or as a marketing campaign is so product and competitor centric that we almost just don't really think about what customer experience we're really providing, what values we're really providing them. So it's no brainer that some of these strategies or messaging or content piece is not really resonating or it's not working. It's because we really need to start with the customer in mind in everything that we do, right? And what's something really interesting that's great that I've discovered through listening to a lot of the MBA program and Stanford and Harvard's podcasts when they talk about this idea of marketing is that, and it also matches with how other entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos have talked about it. It is the idea of even before, if you're a startup, you're starting your product, you should really, really have the customer in mind. You might, initially have that in mind, right? When you're building your product, you believe that you're solving a particular segment's problem with this product, and that you believe that, with more people using it, you'll make their life easier, and etc., etc. And though that most of that is probably still true, the idea of communicating these benefits to your customer is not an easy task. And I think that a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, have difficulty in explaining their benefits to customer, making their product so simple and intuitive to use that the customer feel like it's a breeze, right? Because you really could, as a company, have the best product, but it will still not succeed due to the fact that the customer is not, either not only not aware of your product, but they don't know how to use it, they don't understand it, and that will be the biggest gap between your product succeeding and the customer. So I love this quote because it also then emphasizes whenever you have like a business problem, or as a marketer, anytime you can't agree on a marketing strategy, or you don't know how to go to market, what that message should be, going back to the core of, well, what is best for the customer? How can I add value to the customer? In what way can I speak to the customers to let them know better in a simplistic term these value props, right? These values, propositions that your product offers to them. How do I communicate those in the best way possible? It's probably your best bet in reaching your customer and having them convert into a paying customer, and so forth and so on. Another quote that I really liked is this one: buyer's legend process transform a company by helping the team tell stories from your customer's perspective. It's how you begin a truly customer-centric approach to business. The key is to look beyond the data about the company performance and see the data that reveals your company's reality. Again, this is another quote that emphasizes the importance of your customers being customer-centric. So the first part of this quote talks about telling the stories from your customer's perspective. So it is, in a sense, adding to what I was saying earlier. How do you make your message resonate with your customer very closely? Like, some of the biggest gaps or areas of improvements that I see in the current way that most companies market is it's very eye-centric. Meaning, if I'm, a content marketer in a company, the way that I will write a blog article would be that, hey, my product or my company, like I'll say, the company name, and that this is what we do. These are the great things about us. This is how we're better than our competitor. These are our stats compared to our competitors. And this is how we helped our customer win. It's very much of how, we as a company did this, how we did that, how we showcased this, and this is why you should, come to us. A lot of those articles and positioning and messaging and go-to-market messagings are actually positioned that way instead of from a customer's perspective. Meaning, as a customer, put yourself as the person that, either, rather if it's B2B or B2C, right, business to business or business to consumer type of marketing, you could be in both of the shoes. You work at a company, people could sell to you, but really it's to your company. So you have that experience as a B2B person. At B2C, that's every one of us, right? We are targeted by different commercials, ads, and whatnot to either buy an iPhone, to buy things, to buy products for ourselves. So we know what that feels like and what we care about, right? Like, a lot of times as a consumer, you care about, how does these things benefit you? Why do you need it? How does that resonate with you, with who you are, right? If it's, let's say, a consumer's product, you think about, is that you? Is that your style? If it's, any type of clothing, accessory, or even like technologies, right? Like tech products like iPhones, Pixel phone, MacBooks, Chromebooks, all of these speaks, sure, one, usability, how well they function, but second, it also speaks a little bit of, well, who you are as a person. Maybe you just see yourself as an iPhone person because it's the in thing, it's out there, your friends uses it, and you don't want to use an Android, or you want to be unique and you want to be different, So all of these products, all of these things that are out there, it's not just about the best product. It has to be a product that resonate with you. It's not about, the most expensive or the best clothing. It's about clothing and styles that matches you. So again, as a company or as a retailer, let's say we're targeting you with clothing ads, we can't just say, hey, we have the best material, the best price, the best this, the best that. Those are not always the best, resonating messaging to the consumers, right, to you. So you have to then think about, as a person who's consuming all of these content, what will resonate with you the most? Well, one, speaking in a way that we know will resonate with you, right? So like, of course, through advertising, which is another topic that, I'll dive deeper in a different video, which is, like the more we know about you, if let's say we're an advertising company, the more we know about you, the more that we could target you with relevant ads, and perhaps these messagings will be more resonating to you. So let's say you're a rock band style type of person. We then would want to speak to you in ways that resonate with you, right? We perhaps will sell you clothing that we think you will like, that fits this rockish culture. So, so that is what, this book means when they talk about telling stories from your customer's perspective, right? Think in their sense. Messages that benefits them. Messages will get them to where they want to go, become who they want to be, and you're just amplifying that and helping them get there, and you're not selling them anything. So that's the way that you want to position yourself. The second part of this quote talks about, for example, the key is to look beyond the data about the company performance and see the data that reveals your customer's reality. Now, this goes a little bit back to the very first quote that we saw, where I believe, let's see, right, so like, to change a person's action, you must change their belief. So this kind of comes across where when we look at about like a company's data, like let's say you're a marketing team and you're looking at how effective your marketings are. We look at these data, and a lot of times we're looking at the performance of your campaigns and how the company is doing, right? So we think about it as like, it's almost like a gamble where, hey, I put in X amount of dollars. What is my ROI? What is my return? Did I hit the customer that I need? Did those customer close? And that is how, honestly, like how almost every single company that I have been a part of, that's how they read their data. And this quote, why I really love it, is this last part where see the data that reviews your customer's reality. Again, it brings it back, it ties it back to what it means to be customer centric. What is the customer telling, what is these data telling about your customer? So the way I see this, and I think, it completely makes sense when you look at your company's performance data. Sure, you could see that like this campaign is working, this is not working, and you tie it back to ROI, you tie it back to revenue. But the ideal thing is to go one step further, is to question yourself. Well, what does these data reveal about your customer's reality? So, for example, one way to relate this is, okay, you threw three marketing campaigns out there, and all three converted these customers, and now they're paying customers. So you could conclude that perhaps the campaign experience was a great experience, therefore that is the customer's reality and they love it. That's why they're paying customer, versus those who did not convert, they didn't have a good experience, therefore that's the customer's reality. That's a very high level way to think about it, but then again, for most people who's into marketing or who's in the industry knows, optimization, A/B testing, and all of those things. Now that is part of testing the customer's reality and really understanding what fits best for them. What do they want? What do they care about? What do they resonate with? What do they, like all of those data, how do you relate your company's performance back to the customer's reality to then know how you could then target them and understand their perspective even more through these data would be your ultimate goal. Another quote here is, you cannot improve what you do not measure. Then his eyes began to wrinkle as his eyebrows shot upwards with the corners of his mouth. But you can measure these things. You can gather this data. You can make these improvements. the reason why I put this quote here, even though honestly, as I'm reading it, it's not the most interesting or wowing quote, is the idea of measurement. Um, the reason why I want to talk about this is, if you as a listener, if you're a part of any marketing team, or even if it's not marketing, just any team that involves data or measurement, you could agree with me that so many companies not doing a great job in, one, data integrity, and two, setting rules and processes that actually enables you to measure data correctly, and three, having data scientists or analysts to actually know what they're looking at with all the data that they're able to capture, and crafting out that customer perspective or customer's reality. So I put this here because, again, like, it's a huge important thing. Like, you can't see things that you can't measure, or what, I forgot that quote exactly, but essentially, having a way to effectively measure the things that you need to see, like customers' reality and the performances of your campaigns, is so important. And I can't emphasize enough that this is probably one of the most difficult things for most companies to get right. And it's crazy because all of these companies run on these metrics and goals that supposed to be based off these numbers, but a lot of the times it's so scary that a lot of people would just kind of throw a couple numbers together, data points together, and they say, yep, that's the source of truth and it's accurate. And when you really look deep to those and you question, how are these accurate, were these data captured, how these data connect within all of these systems, and what was their drop off, all of those things, no one could actually answer those questions, but yet they will take these numbers and say, hey, I influenced or generated $3 million or $1 billion. And it's just crazy to me that these measurements sometimes just not in place accurately. So I just put this quote here to basically emphasize the importance of measurements within your company, especially if you're starting a startup. And I must say, as a person that have been within a startup, a mid-sized company, and now a very gigantic, famous corporation, Google, I would say that, as a startup, you actually have the opportunity to really clean up the way you measure. You could set how you measure, and you as a person, if you're created your startup, you might not be the person that knows all the data scientist system and all of those things, but I highly recommend you hire someone that, they don't have to know it all, to be honest, but they have to have the willingness to learn very quickly and have a passion for marketing. And it doesn't even have to be data. I think that if you want to measure your success, especially through marketing efforts or just drive brand awareness and all of those things, hire someone who's like quick to learn things, have a passion for marketing, and have them figure out how to put all of these data and system in place together. And I think that setting those things from scratch as you're starting will really help out, instead of waiting until years in and you have a bunch of data collected and you don't know what to do with it. All right, second quote: no, the sales funnel is a flawed metaphor. Why? Funnels work because of an invisible force called gravity, but there is no force compelling your customer to move through your sales funnel. So I love this quote. And because I'm part of marketing and we talk a lot about marketing funnels and how to get the audience convert down to the funnel and make them customers, I think that this quote is just so true, when especially the part that says the sales funnel is a flawed metaphor because of an invisible force called gravity. So we obviously know how the funnel looks like, bigger at the top, more narrow at the bottom, thinking that leads and your customer or prospect should kind of funnel their way in, go down to the different stages as they progress, and eventually become a customer. But the reality is that there is no such force. There's this invisible force called gravity. It doesn't actually exist. There's no such thing that will make these prospects that you drove at the very top of your funnel to move down to the sales funnel. There's no, guarantee, or to be honest, most of the time they don't convert, they don't go down. And I would say a big part of that is how, just thinking about how how you as an organization, as a company, treating these leads throughout the funnel. What kind of leads are you capturing in the first place, right? Because I think one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen is a lot of companies drive pay media campaigns and they capture a bunch of leads, right? You could even buy a list, buy leads, right? You could say, hey, I pay you $20 for every single lead that you provide me for B2B, and I want 1,000 of them. And, without vetting out how qualified each of these 1,000 leads that you're capturing, or, you're on LinkedIn and you're on Facebook and you're generating a bunch of interaction that people are having with your brands and they're downloading your white paper. But then again, like, vetting out these quality of conversion is very important. So you could capture essentially like 20 or 100,000 leads, but how many of them are actually qualified is a huge question. So therefore, you put all 100,000 of them into your funnel, the chances are maybe only 2% of those actually become a customer, or 5%, right? That's a very, 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 low conversion rate, given that you have a very high amount of leads, you would imagine. But then again, that's actually fairly common in the marketing world, because, this funnel, this sales funnel, there is no guarantee that your customer or your prospect would move through this sales funnel. And it does take a lot of marketing efforts and true marketing efforts, and think about what is best for your customer to then actually influence them and guide them to picking that your product is the right thing for them. So I put this quote here because of that reason. I think this might be the second to the last quote. So this one says, keep in mind that our reverse chronology outline begins with the hero arriving at the destination. Now we have to figure out how he got there. This is where it becomes important that you understand the difference between quantitative data telling you what your customers are doing, and qualitative data that gives you insights into why your customers are doing it. So I put this quote here because this idea of, first of all, the beginning part, like, begins with the hero arriving at the destination and figuring out how he got there. It's another emphasis on the customer journey and being customer centric, right? So like, this quote basically says, there's always a hero in the story, and the hero always wins. And the hero in this example, in this book, is your customer. They're the heroes. So therefore, you need to understand, if as you're creating the story, you need to kind of create the story backwards, from the hero arriving at the destination, meaning the customer being part of your company or product, buying into what you can offer them, and you need to figure out how they got there, right? So that's when the idea, like what Steve Jobs said, start with your customer experience and work your way backward to the technology. And that is exactly what this quote is saying. So crafting your hero at the very end, at the destination, and figuring out how he got there. So that's the kind of story, you want to think about, especially as a marketer. Like, that is a very good way to start crafting your content, your events, your webinar, your story from that perspective. In what stages, as you're going back, the very, last stage before they become that hero, before they become the customer, what is their mindset at the time, and what would they care about at the time, right? Like, as they're already aware of your product, what are some of the last things that you really need to convert them into a customer? Is it price? Is it, knowing more about your usability of the product? Like, what is it? Figuring that out is crafting basically your bottom of the funnel content piece. So working that backward, and then before that, that particular thing that kind of closed them up, what was another stage before that you want to craft, that the content piece will be appealing to them, right? So again, you keep going back, and now you're all the way back to the top of the funnel. And you think about brand awareness. What does it mean? It's not just about having your name out there, and be like, hey, my product is, I don't know, I'm just looking like water bottle. Let's say that's your company name. That's just because that's what I'm looking at. But if that's your company name, sure, you could blast the term, your logo, water bottle everywhere, and people perhaps will generate some sort of curiosity and be like, what is this water bottle thing I see everywhere? But it's not going to be strong enough if you don't have a compelling message or mission or purpose that will help you become or help you resonate closely with your target audience, right? Because even as a water bottle, you should have particular segments or people in mind, and you could even develop personality, right? Like Coca-Cola, it's a drink, but we see Coca-Cola and we have a particular feeling and things that resonate with us when we see that brand. And I think that's one of the strongest thing or brand awareness that any company could generate, is a feeling that people have when they think about you. Of course, you want that feeling to be positive, but that is an important thing, right? So, as a water bottle company, you can't just be like talking about we're the purest, we're the thing. Like, that doesn't set you apart from anyone out there. If I just removed your, water bottle image to any other product, I could think like that would be like nothing is wrong with it. Like, how do you be unique, right? Is there a style of water bottle that you could package yourself that speaks a little bit about, the status of this water bottle or whatever? Like, for example, like Smart Water, or Vast Water, like they kind of resonated with certain type of people, and they kind of package themselves as to be this like more expensive, superior type of water bottle that, again, like they are something different, they look different, they position themselves perhaps a little bit differently, and they resonated with a set of people that resonated with that. So again, like working your way backwards slowly about how your customer becomes that hero at the very end, and thinking about how each of the stages you're still crafting with your customer in mind, talking to them from their perspective, and making your brand, speaking of your brand in a way that will resonate with them, where you speak of your beliefs and you attract those who have the similar belief as you. So this is my very last slide. My conclusion, or my, like rating of this book, I would say it is I don't know, 6.5 or 7. I am a very hard grader. But I mean, one of the biggest key good thing about this book really is the reminder of the importance of a customer. I mean, it's not something that is completely new, but it does help remind you the importance of being customer centric and what that means. So yeah, so that is my review for this book. Leave comments below and let me know how you would like the next one be like. All right, see ya.